Let's look ahead to Monday. Streaming options, what we're watching for, what's on my radar, and Gordon Hayward goes under the lens. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. My name is Josh Lloyd and I have the Kavorka. And I am also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the all lowercase code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and we are available on all platforms. So we're here to look ahead to Monday in the NBA, a pretty nice schedule with just the 8 games on, a standard start time as well, 7 p.m. Eastern start time there, and it so begins a weird week, Thanksgiving week, week 5 in the NBA. A reminder, there are no Monday to Tuesday back-to-backs. I believe there is, because Tuesday is the in-season tournament day, so there's no Monday, Tuesday back-to-back going on there. So our 2-for-1 streaming does not exist. I'm also not going to be covering chunks in this show because there's no ability to stream on Wednesday, there's no ability to stream on Thursday, and there's probably no ability to stream on Friday, and there are no back-to-backs Monday, Tuesday. So you're not getting really any advantage in the next 5 days when we consider that and look ahead to it. But what we can do is look at Monday, what's on my radar, injury updates, streaming options, streamer of the day, and Gordon Hayward going under the lens. So let's take a look at where we're at with some injuries. We still have the headmaster Jamal Murray on the sidelines with his hammy. Maybe the end of the week he's able to come back, but I wouldn't count on it just yet. Quentin Grimes with his wrist issue, it seems like he's going to be out again on Monday, so that's going to open up some big streaming opportunities there. Trey Lyles remains out for Sacramento. Draymond Green got 3 games left on his suspension. Gaz Payton's going to be out for a little bit of time with a sprained ankle. Amen Thompson probably the rest of this week as well, but maybe coming back then. Don't get your hopes up with Amen. I see people asking multiple times, hey, do I go and stash Amen? No. I don't see... Look, if you're in a standard league... Okay, let's get that clear. In a 16-team league, sure. But there is no 30-minute path here for Amen the way there is for Asar. He is not going to be pushed into this large role. He's not going to take over from Dylan Brooks or Jalen Green or Fred VanVleet. He's going to get some backup minutes. But with Tyree Eason there, it's going to be like 18 to 20 minutes a night. So no, we're not stashing it. And there isn't that clear, well, if we just wait 2 weeks, here is the pathway for Amen. I wish there was. I wish he was taking over this role, but it's not happening at any point soon. So I wouldn't worry too much about that one. Devin Vassell is doubtful for the Spurs again with this groin issue. So that is obviously a little bit concerning. He had some issues obviously last season with a lot of injuries, and that just means we're getting Julian Champagnie instead of Malachi Branham, which is a W because I think Champagnie's a better player. He does become somewhat of a stream guy. I'm going to list Al Horford as doubtful. It is the second game of a back-to-back for the Celtics, and Horford is playing on Sunday, so I'm expecting that he is out for Monday's game, so I'm going to list him doubtful. And Monte Morris, we haven't had an update on him yet. I am going to list him doubtful, along with Isaiah Livers, who I just don't know whether they're going to be returning, but I would say, and Boyan's out, of course, for the Pistons. I just don't think they're going to be able to play. I've got Jaylen Brown listed questionable here. He did sort of tweak his groin on the slippery in-season tournament courts the other day, which is, I like the courts. I don't like the slipperiness. That shit needs to be fixed pretty clearly. So if Jalen is, if he doesn't play Sunday, then there's a risk that he doesn't play Monday. Even if he plays Sunday, I would say there's a risk if he's got some sort of groin issue that they sit him on a back-to-back. So watch that one. I don't know whether Jalen Duren's available to return, but he's out on Sunday, so I'm going to label him questionable for Monday. Killian Hayes is out on Sunday, so I'm going to label him questionable for Monday as well. Not that we want much to do with Hayes, but he does impact his own streaming value and then value for others. We should be getting close to a Terry Rozier return, but I'm just at the moment going to label him questionable. I honestly don't think that he plays, but they give no updates. So I'm just putting that on your radar that he might be available. Big Dick Nick Richards missed the last game with a concussion. His return, and then Rozier. We just want him back so we can understand how the rotation works. More on the Hornets later. Fan of Pants, Kevin Huerter. It is a back-to-back. for the Kings, and he's currently listed questionable for Sunday. So I'm just going to keep him the questionable tag for Monday. We'll see whether he plays. If it's a finger issue, so if he plays on Sunday, he should be fine for Monday. If he misses Sunday, then there is a risk that he sits on Monday there as well. And then Jose Alvarado's return should be coming. So I'm going to list him questionable for this game, and then how he impacts guys like Dyson Daniels and Jordan Hawkins, and even like a Najee Marshall perhaps, will be something for us to watch. Chris Middleton missed the Bucks last game, but that was because it was a back-to-back. He will return. He's off the injury report. We haven't got the Pelicans injury report yet, but I'm telling you, Zion is going to play. He sat the last game because it's a back-to-back, but he's officially... I've got him listed as probable just because I haven't officially heard this, but Zion is going to play. I don't think we need to be too wrapped up in trying to debate that. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. It is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Simple as that. You go in there, you don't have to worry about salary caps and lineups and thousands of players and pros and sharks and algorithms and everyone with too much time on their hands. They just throw up a player stat and you just say, more or less. So you might look at Gordon Hayward, who's coming up under the lens soon, and they might throw his points number up at 12.5. And you go, the bloke sucks. Maybe I'll choose less. And you can do between 2 to 6 of these and win up to 25 times your money back on your entries. They've also got a reboot policy. So if someone like Gordon Hayward gets injured in the first half and doesn't return in the second half, well, they just reboot that player. They're the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. So that's a great thing. That's for basketball and for football too. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. That is prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. It is the promo code LockedOnNBA, and it is a $100 first deposit match up to. PrizePicks is daily fantasy sports made easy. Okay, that will bring us now into the part of the show where we do go under the lens, and we do head to shows, and we're going to look at Gordon Hayward. And it is one of these situations where it is very easy to make a sweeping judgment on this stuff because Miles Bridges came back, and both Gordon Hayward and PJ Washington have sucked. They've been dreadful. Absolutely no one is debating that. Is that Miles Bridges, though? Or is it the fact that both guys all of a sudden couldn't hit a single shot in the world? I don't know the full answer to all of this, but what I do know is that Miles Bridges does not make these men shoot 10% from the field. And we're going to talk about this with Hayward because he is one of the biggest value drops over the last week. It is only 2 games because he was injured, and that does sink in with Miles Bridges. But what does it mean? Well, in the last week, he's 269th per game in -1 rankings. That's not even remotely a 20-team league guy. But obviously, we're not dropping him in those formats. Fantasy points, he's averaged 13 fantasy points. Stinks. 229th over the last week. Dreadful. Disgusting. But is it worth dropping? The thing that I would look at here, there are 2 ways to look at this. He's averaging 3 points per game. All right, 3 points per game in the 2 games since Bridges returns. And obviously, that's just not a real number. Like, he's not going to be a 3-point player. He's averaging 2 assists, but he's still playing 31 minutes a night. The 2 things that I want to look at here, and one thing that I'm telling you will not stay, he is shooting 13% from the field. 13. That includes 0% on threes and 18% on twos. For the season, he's only at 32 from 3 and 46 from 2 with a field goal percentage of 43, which is not particularly strong. But he was at 48 and 46 the last 2 years, so there's still room for all of this to improve. The big thing that is the red flag for me is usage. He's been rolling at over 20%. He's at 21% at the moment, 20.9% to be precise, in usage for the season. Since Bridges came back, 12%. Now, 12% is a Tom Thibodeau center type number. It is unfathomably low, and Hayward will not be that low of a usage player. But it does go to show just the level of impact that Bridges did have on the way the shots are distributed. This morally bankrupt franchise put Bridges back into the lineup and just pumped minutes into him and used him, and he's going to take this starting job, I think, pretty soon, right? I think that's what they're going to do. But when I'm looking at Hayward, I know that the field goal percentage is going to improve. It is going to improve significantly, and that impacts both of those rankings in a big way. What I am worried about is where the usage goes. Does it stay at, does it go back to 21, or does it not? In the last season, when Bridges played in 21-22, Hayward was a 21 usage player in 49 games, 32 minutes a night. They do now have Brandon Miller. It's an extra year of LaMelo Ball. But otherwise, the pieces are basically the same. It's Ball, it's Rozier, it's Hayward, it's Bridges, it's Washington. They're all the same players. And Hayward was able to maintain 21 usage. He was 19 last season, so he's sort of ramping it back, or dialing it back. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes at an 18 usage this season. I wouldn't be shocked at that. But what I do know is that this production is not all Bridges, because that shooting will not hold. And I don't even think that 12% usage will hold. If we use Crafted NBA's metric of something called shooting quality, which is a metric that they've developed using a bunch of different factors to show the measure of a shooting ability from a player, he's sitting at 71st percentile. So we know that even him going at 42% from the field is well under what we expect him to do. So he's been shooting the ball really well. He's got really high creation numbers, really high load giggity, really high passer rating. Even his defensive numbers are relatively solid over on Crafted NBA, and his crafted PM numbers, OPM and DPM, are sort of middle of the pack. So this is one of those perfect situations where something happens in a lineup with Bridges returning, and then a bunch of other stuff completely unrelated go on, and we tie them all into Bridges returning. I would like to hold Hayward and Washington in 12-team leagues for at least one more game and see what happens. See how it looks when he shoots a normal percentage. Does he stay at 15 usage? Does he play 26 minutes? Then it's a clear drop. Very easy. But if he goes back to 21 usage and plays 31 minutes and shoots a normal percentage, well, he actually will have enough value. Does he become more of a playmaker because that second unit's got no passes? Then maybe as well. So I'm not bailing completely on Gordo at this point, but I'm very closely watching both him and Paul Washington Jr. I hope that was relatively helpful to dig in some of the numbers, because it is very easy to look at the numbers and go, man, what's this shit? 13 fantasy points, I'm dropping him. Bridges is back, he's cooked. And it's really not as simple as that, I don't believe, as Obi's in here wanting to talk. What's up, bud? Do you want to come up? He's got some Gordon Hayward thoughts, I think. Let's look at the stream of the day for Monday's action. In 10-teamers, we are looking at Malik Monk. In 12-teamers, this is under the assumption that Quentin Grimes is out, and I believe that he is. Donte DiVincenzo is a 12-team league guy. In fact, Donte, you'd stream in every format there. We're using a cascade effect here, where the priority of these guys goes from the top down to the bottom for your category leagues, but Donte should be available everywhere. In 14 teams, with the likelihood that Al Horford is out and some iffiness around Jaylen Brown, I wish we could get the Jaylen Brown update, Sam Hauser's there. And then for deeper formats, Terrence Mann. Now, he is going to start. That doesn't mean he's going to be a good pickup everywhere, but he's rostered, or he's available in 95% of leagues. So in deeper formats, getting a starter who might hit 30 minutes, I've got to have some value in that, yeah? That's got to have something. For Yahoo Points Leagues, Reggie Jackson looks to me to be the best option for Monday. And then for ESPN Points League format, not using their roster percentages, they can go themselves. They're done. Kobe White is a pretty good streamer, I think, using ESPN's point scoring system for the games on Monday, November the 20th. Let's take a look at what is on my radar for these 8 games. We will start with Denver and Detroit. Unfortunately, both of these teams have a back-to-back Sunday, Monday, so I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen with all of the Detroit injuries. I don't think there's going to be any sits in terms of Denver on back-to-backs, but who knows? In terms of streams, Reggie Jackson, as we just mentioned, is worth a look. And then Alec Burks is worth it in Detroit, but that could be screwed up. But if Morris returns or Livers returns or Hayes returns, it could be all over the shop. I'm very, very closely watching Jaden Ivey in Sunday's game, but we'll talk about him in the recap show later on today. The next game, Boston and Charlotte. The Celtics do have a back-to-back, so we're expecting that Al Horford sits. And of course, on the Charlotte side, it is Gordon Hayward. I just detailed all the reasons why we want to watch what's going on there, why he's on my radar. In terms of streamers, we look at Sammy Hauser. And amazingly, somehow, in this year, 2023, Ish Smith is playing. And he's playing 15-plus minutes for the Hornets. That is an absolute How is Mitch Kupchak still in this job? That is an absolute failure of roster building. And that you pass on Scoot, not that Scoot's been good, but you pass on Scoot because you can't have too many ball handlers, and then you're running out Ish Smith as a backup? Bruh. Come on. So Ish Smith's getting minutes at the moment, and that actually might be streaming, especially for deep leagues. Milwaukee and Washington. I do want to watch Chris Middleton. Is this man ever going to get his minutes to bump? His per-minute production, actually great. It's actually probably better than it's been in past years. But he's playing 20 a night, and that's where the frustration lies. Some timeline, man. We are 4 weeks in to the NBA season. The slowest ramp-up in history. Let's see what happens. And then for the Wizards, I do want to watch this man, the most frustrating man in the world, Jordan Poole. Not only is it is his fault, it's not just his fault, it's his team and his coach, all that stuff is bad, but I could have envisaged downside for Poole this season, right? But I could not have envisaged this. I could not have envisaged him being significantly worse than he was as a backup in Golden State. How is it possible? I do want to watch him, but I also don't, because it makes me sick to watch this guy play at the moment and the level of I don't give a fuck that he has, and the whole team, to be honest, and it's disgusting, and let's hope they drop to 5th in the lottery. In terms of streams, Malik Beasley, he is hot and he's cold. Shout out to Katy Perry, but he can be a points and threes guy. And then Bilal Coulibaly, who I do believe should be on a roster somewhere. He's going to be very up and down, right? He's going to be a nice defensive stats guy, but he's not going to be considered a must-roster player. I don't think he's quite must-roster, but he is fine to roster, and he's a solid stream option in this sort of scenario here. Today's episode is also brought to you by the legends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA season is here as I write my own copy on the fly, and you're going to want to swish your way through onto FanDuel, because that's what we want to do. They are America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 dues in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. $dues not legal tender. It's actually just dollars. But you can get them in bonus bets over at FanDuel when you take a look at all of the NBA action that's going on. $150 if your team wins. And if your team plays the Wizards, well, there you go. There's your 150 bonus bets that might be sliding their way right into your account. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. Use your spreads, your player props, over-unders, totals, futures, parlays. FanDuel has everything you would want to put your NBA knowledge to the test. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and tip off the NBA season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay, let us roll through the rest here after the Bucks and the Wizards, which could be a disgusting game. Why is that the same? What the hell? Something went wrong there. All right, I don't really know what happened there, but the next game was supposed to be Knicks and Wolves, and the graphic has just disappeared. And I am in a time crunch to get this out, so I'm just going to talk about the Knicks and Wolves game, what I'm watching for. There is no... Neither of these teams here are on a back-to-back, so that's a W for us in that respect. What we want to watch on the Knicks side of things is... I did create this graphic. I don't know where it went. Julius Randle is what I want to watch, because even though it's a little bit under the radar, he's back in form. He's scoring 20 points a game. There are going to be iffiness with his usual stuff, but those unbelievably low numbers from Julius Randle are gone in terms of percentages, so he's back to a degree. So that is good news in that respect. For the Wolves, what I do want to watch is Karl Anthony Towns, because... I did say that he won't continue to shoot 100% from the line, and he went at 88 last game, so that's a W. Unfortunately for me, he shot 92% from the field and had 9 assists, which of course are extraordinary outlier numbers, which boosted his numbers. And this is where I do beg people to really pay attention to what's going on in fantasy. Because I put Towns under the lens and said, hey, he's not going to keep these numbers up. It's unlikely. And then, of course, he has his big game. So people go, hey, look at that. He had 46 points. Cool. That's great. But none of that shit is real. He's not a 92% shooter. He's not going to get 9 assists per game. It's about looking at trends that are real and sustainable versus stuff that's a one-off outlier sort of performance. And that is how you can have success long-term in fantasy, is by understanding what is real and what isn't, and what can drop and what can jump up. So just pay attention to that. In terms of stream options on these teams, Donte DiVincenzo for the Knicks and Kyle Anderson for the Wolves is the guy we want to look at. Sorry about the graphic screw up there. The next game is the Clippers and the San Antonio Spurs. It's Russ Westbrook. Look, we want to see if the value of the brick is going up or is it going down, because he played 17 minutes off the bench last game. And I had my waiver wire show earlier today, and I did say that Russ is going to become droppable, I believe. And if you wanted to drop him now, I don't think it's 100% incorrect. I'd like to wait one more game or two more games, because he might play 29 off the bench. That sort of defeats the purpose of him being benched, and they played him few minutes and they won. So is that tied in, or is that coincidence? We will find out. Let's see what happens to Russ. And then for the Spurs, it is Jeremy Sohan, who's not going to be a point guard long term. I'm fairly confident in that, but that's not what this team is about. But they're losing too many games, right? So at some point, I think they might have to adjust something they're doing, or we need to see more improvement from Sohan. I think he has improved. I think he's improved a bit. I don't think he's good at it at all. He's actually shooting okay numbers too. But what they do with him, do they ever make this switch? Again, I don't believe it's going to happen. Maybe it happens at Christmas, but I think they're giving him a very long leash to see what happens with this, and I don't think they specifically care a huge amount whether they win or lose. It's about developing these players. You've got to have some sort of winning culture and all that sort of stuff, but is Trey Jones the answer? Look, the answer to that is very clearly no. He's not a starting point guard, and he's not a long-term future guy for them to be in that position. Could he give them a little bit of a boost now? Absolutely, right, he could. But what's the purpose of that? You're not building chemistry between Jones and Wemby. That doesn't do anything long-term, I don't think. Stream options, we've got Normie Powell, and then Julian Champagny with Devin Vassell likely not to play again. Champagny should get another start. Whether that's going to be a successful stream or not, I don't know. But he is an interesting player to take a look at. The Kings and the Pelicans is the next game that we squeeze out here. The Kings are on a back-to-back. The Pelicans are not. Valanciunas' last 2 games have been really good. Now, one of them was without Zion, but the other one wasn't. Zion was there, and Jonas played big minutes. I don't know how realistic that is, but does he have the heft to stand up to Sabonis? He probably does. And Larry Nance is out. So I'm thinking that we're going to get a bit of a short-term boost here for Big JV. In terms of streams, the Pencil Harrison Barnesy, he is available in a lot of different spots, so you can use him as a streamer. That is all he is good for. While for the Pelicans, we're looking at the dustbuster Dyson Daniels, who I do think, even if Jose returns, will start. He has been, I think, the better player than Jordan Hawkins in terms of fantasy production since CJ's injury, and he's really contributing right across the board. He's not as flashy, obviously, but he is putting up some good numbers. A rematch between the Heat and the Bulls. For Miami, Haywood Highsmith. He's still starting. He's still playing more minutes over Caleb Martin. He is not really a 12-team league guy, and we still got the iffiness of how these minutes all shake out as the season goes on, but let's see what he's able to deliver. Well, for the Bulls, I want to see the skater boy Zach LaVine. The man is not happy in Chicago. Chicago is not happy with Zach LaVine. They just need to get him out of this squad. Sick max contract that he signed. He's just been consistently a losing player throughout his career, even though some of his numbers look good. There is significant room for LaVine to improve on what he's done this season. He is not this bad of a player, but there is so much going on with this team that it's disgusting to watch, and I actually feel sorry for Bulls fans, of which I used to be one. And yeah, it's shithouse. It sucks. In terms of streams, Kyle Lowry, a bit of a better game from him last time out, and him just consistently or relatively consistently getting 30 minutes while guys like Richardson go up and down, and even Huckers go up and down. That does impact their reliability. In terms of the Bulls stream, well, it's Alex Caruso. He's not a streamer. He's a guy you want to roster, even though we might get the Caruso trifecta going, which is start a game, go to the locker room, come back, put up good numbers. That's actually a quadralla. The quadralla. Quadralla. Those of you in Australia who are old school TAB legends, you know what a quadralla is. I don't even know if that's a real thing in other places. What it is in horse racing is when you pick the winner of 4 races in a row. The quaddie. Do you remember the quad extra? Anyway, this is back from me spending too much time in a TAB when I was young. Alex Caruso, he's worth having a crack at. The next game is the Rockets and the Golden State Warriors. The Rockets are on a back-to-back here. The Warriors are not. But what does that mean? Yeah, this is exactly what it means. It is time on the Warriors for watch on Klay Thompson, because he continues to suck. Chris Paul has looked better. Andrew Wiggins was better last game. I think we probably can drop Klay in shallow leagues, but there's always that chance that as he is starting, even though guys like Moody and Podziemski have played better nearly every game this season, they are still going to stick with Klay. We want to watch his role, his minutes, his production, and if he is actually, he's still firmly on watch, very firmly there. Let's see how it sticks. In terms of streamers, Tari Eason, I worry that he may not play on the back-to-back because he's coming back from the leg injury, but if he does play, then we stream him. And then for the Warriors, even though he's moved to a bench role, Dario Saric is worth streaming. You can look at Podziemski in that role, or even Johnny Kuminga, who may or may not start. I don't know. He moved to the bench last game and didn't do a huge amount there. Lastly, we go in here to look at some streaming options. Let's look at 6 names who should be options for 10-team leagues. We're looking at Malik Monk, the big ragu himself, Donte DiVincenzo, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Alex Caruso, the dustbuster Dyson Daniels, and Kyle Anderson. If we go to 12-teamers, some of the same names there, DiVincenzo, Caruso, Daniels, Anderson. Throw in Sammy Hauser and Leaky Beasley. He's in there. We're 22% rostered. And then for deeper formats, we look at DiVincenzo. We look at Samuel Hauser, Reggie Jackson, Terrence Mann, Peyton Pritchard, especially if a Celtics player rests. And I don't know why I spelled it so poorly, but Jaime Jaquez has dropped down to 20% rostered. Fair enough, but he is a streamable guy for deepers. Even if you want to look in 12 teamers, you could stream in old mate Jaime. for points leagues, and this will wrap us up here. Reggie Jackson, the Dustbuster Dyson Daniels, Donte DiVincenzo, Kobe White, Kyle Anderson, and Bilal Coulibaly are all streaming options for Monday. Guys, that will do it for me today. Don't forget to follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on not Stitcher. Screwed it up. I thought I'd got this one. On YouTube, thumb it up. Leave your comments down below, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.